everybody. How are you doing today? I'm JD from LearnGeek and Exonify, and I am a month late with this particular recording. Back in May, you see, I spoke at the ATD 24 conference in New Orleans, and I had the honor of presenting the only session at the entire event about the use of artificial intelligence in learning and development. That is a total lie, because more than 10% of the conference agenda was focused on AI, and it's by far the most popular topic in the profession right now. And it's also the most annoying subject in the profession right now, because you've got every publication and every event and every vendor just kind of jumping on the AI bandwagon. And, that is leading to a bit of confusion when it comes to what's real and what's hype around this whole AI story. Now, AI isn't new to learning and development, far from it. But right now, there are more questions than answers when it comes to the impact that this latest wave of digital transformation is having on the work that we do as L&D professionals. So rather than talk about how to apply specific technology in the work that we're doing every day, I took a little bit of a different approach with my session called Harness AI to Transform Your Learning Ecosystem. So what we did was we explored the 3 levels of digital transformation within the workplace and why L&D professionals need to understand how technology is shifting work at an organizational level before we can really determine how we're going to evolve our functional practices and then finally our everyday individual roles to suit. And this presentation was actually based on the newest chapter of my book, The Modern Learning Ecosystem, where I explain how AI is going to fundamentally change the ways that we think about learning and performance within the workplace. So if you actually want to read the whole story about what I talked about, you can head over to jdwroteabook.com and then click on Access Chapter 15 and enter the super secret code 1004 to download the PDF version right now. And if you know why the secret code is 1004, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll be very excited if you do. And if you also want to grab, the entire slide deck for my presentation, other resources related to AI and learning and development, you can head to my AI resource website. That's over at LearnGeek.ai. Now, my session also featured a special appearance, if you will. You see, LearnGeek AI was there, my digital avatar. And what LearnGeek did was it asked everyone in attendance to submit their AI in L&D questions before and then during the session. And since we only had an hour together in New Orleans, I promised to answer every question right here on my YouTube channel after the conference. And, it's been a month, so I'm finally keeping that promise. So everyone who attends a session, in my opinion, whether it's a webinar, conference session, any commitment of time to an educational pursuit, I believe people deserve to have their questions answered. So here are my answers to literally every question that was asked during my AI in L&D session at ATD 24. And be sure to like and subscribe on LearnGeek on YouTube if you enjoy these post-session Q&A videos that I do from time to time when I have a lot of questions that I just can't answer in the room together during a session. So let's dive in with our first question. How long is this going to take? We'll see. But I'm also going to chapter the video question by question on YouTube. So if you just want to jump to a question that you think is particularly interesting or that you have, feel free to do so, or just, let's hang out for a while. Question number 1, what's your favorite AI tool right now? So you're going to notice that there's a bit of a trend in the questions that were asked, specifically the first set of questions that were likely asked before the session began, because they're going to focus more on the technology, specific tools, and how we can best apply them. And the most important thing that L&D can do right now, from my perspective, is not allow ourselves to get distracted by, shiny technology and short-term gains. Instead, we have to understand how work is changing and prepare to evolve the L&D function in service of supporting that next version of work, and not just apply new technology to do what we're already doing today, because we, in fact, just might be doing the wrong job in that case. So anyway, right now I'm applying at least, I'd say, like 15 to 20 different tools that leverage AI in some meaningful ways as part of my regular workflow. And right now, I'll just use one example of a tool I'm finding a lot of value from, and that's Opus Clip. It's an AI-powered video editor that I use to find and cut short clips from longer form videos. And in fact, I'm going to use Opus Clip, same app, on this video when I'm done to generate a series of YouTube shorts in addition to this longer, he just keeps talking version of this conversation. So it'll help people get small snippets of information as opposed to having to click through this entire video. And it's actually a great example of something else that I think is important when it comes to AI in the workplace. And it's how AI is actually shifting my workflow in addition to helping me do my job differently. So not only am I using AI to find short clips in my longer videos, but I'm also restructuring my longer videos to make it easier for AI to find those 45 or 60-second clips that I can then use across different platforms and different channels. So I believe AI is going to fundamentally change what content creation is over the next 3 to 5 years. Where's it going? I have no idea. This is really just the beginning of that conversation, but I think it's important that we be open to and explore new opportunities. But again, keep the focus on creating for the purposes of solving a problem, helping people do their jobs as L&D professionals, as opposed to just getting excited about what new technologies can do. Because it is interesting, it's super exciting, but we risk being distracted if we focus on how cool the tech is instead of the problems that we're trying to solve. That's question number one. Our next question is, which AI tools, so again, we're talking about the tools, do you think is the best to create or generate slides for course presentations? Now, it's hard, generally speaking, to say this is the best tool for. One, because we may be doing similar work, but trying to solve different problems or have different constraints or different realities in which you're trying to do that job. And then also the tech is just moving so fast. So today I could say, I think this is the best tool. And then tomorrow something else comes out and suddenly that's the best tool for me. So I think it's important that we not get, again, stuck on technology or maybe too stuck on specific tools because of just how fast the technology is evolving as we figure out, well, where does AI fit within the reality of doing our jobs every day? So when it comes to this specific question, I actually don't use AI slide creators because they simply, at least right now, can't create the types of slides that I use. And it's not that I create, the best slides out there. I'm very jealous of people who have, designers and design skills that work with them. But I would say I don't build a typical corporate slide deck very often. And you kind of know what I mean when I talk about corporate slide deck, image on right, bullet points on left, or diagram, or charts, tables. Boring, I would say. Again, I don't build the greatest slides, but I have a different style of storytelling. And if you look at tools, you've got Microsoft Copilot, you've got Google Gemini, both are able to generate slides, and even PowerPoint applies AI to offer you different slide layouts, manipulate images, remove backgrounds. So the tools are already beginning to integrate AI to help you build different types of visual presentations. And then you have alternative tools outside kind of the standard corporate tool set. You've got tools like Canva, has AI slide building capabilities. You got a platform like Beautiful.ai, and you got basically dozens of other options for if you're trying to create a presentation based on source material templates to get kind of a basic corporate slide deck. And, of course, these tools can hack together a pretty solid looking, consistently themed, brand aligned deck using familiar layouts. But the tool's not going to tell an impactful, unique story. It's going to get better at it, but it won't get great because remember, AI cannot create. It can build based on what it knows and what it's trained to do. That said, I do use ChatGPT to build all of my decks because I'm generating at least 70% of my images. And I use images for storytelling purposes to reflect broad ideas and topics and issues in my visual presentations. But about 70% of those images in my slide decks nowadays are built by AI, mostly built by ChatGPT. Thanks for the question. Let's move on to our next question, which again is tool-based. What's your favorite image generator AI tool? Just said, it's still ChatGPT. So I started out actually, the first tool I ever used, I remember I was at a conference. The tool was released. I was doing a presentation that had a visual of trees and leaves. And the idea was kind of change and transformation, leaves changing colors, that type of kind of evocative image. And I had a stock image in my deck already, and I went to Bing Image Creator, and I had it generate two images for me. One was leaves, so a comparable image, and did a great job of giving me that kind of color changing leaf aesthetic. And I actually generated a second image just to see what it could do. And I wanted an image of a dog who was very scared about getting up in front of its peers and speaking at a session. It's still my favorite AI generated image. If you're curious about it, send me a note. I can point you towards my kind of scared public speaking dog image. Example of an image that just doesn't exist without artificial intelligence. But I found that ChatGPT, which is again derived from similar foundational LLMs and capabilities, has gotten a lot better over the past couple of months, especially. And I don't really need to get really complicated when it comes to image generation. So I'm not using tools like Midjourney that have more capability and can really get nuanced in what you're trying to create. I have messed around with Adobe Firefly a bit. It's good at what it does, but I just also don't really need to pay for more AI utilities right now. So the kind of broad utility of ChatGPT, especially the purposes for mixed modality when it comes to generating AI-based images, as well as generating text, translating, I get a lot out of that tool. So I'm using ChatGPT for most of my image generating purposes. Thanks again for the question. Moving on, still talking about technology, we're going to talk about content translation. What is the best AI for content translation into other languages? Other language depends on what is the existing language, but it depends is really the answer to this entire question, which is true of a lot of technology, especially when it comes to AI. Because what type of content are you translating? Which languages do you require? How is the content being created? What are people's expectations regarding translation availability, as well as the accuracy of that content? And there's a big difference between translating content that might be more social or informal in nature, like let's say it's a news feed in a social application, and you just need to understand generally what people are saying and be able to participate in the conversation. And then there's translating something that is legally reviewed, right? Subject matter specific types of content. You want to make sure it's 100% accurate because this is operating procedure, right? This is core job requirement type stuff. So it's a different conversation and a different level of requirement when it comes to different types of materials. And simply stated, translation is quickly becoming a solved problem, generally speaking. You still want a fluent speaker to double check any formal content translation. So things like course materials, reference documentation. You want someone reading that to make sure the machine got it right. But AI is helping us get very good, very fast when it comes to automated translations, to the point where I'm using AI to translate both live subtitling and captioning, as well as my presentation materials, and finding that I'm greater than 95% accurate across multiple languages on a pretty consistent basis when I have someone who understands the language verify that material for me. And I'm also doing a trick where I will maybe translate material with one AI tool and then take the translation to a different AI platform and reverse it back to the original language to make sure that it's getting it right, or see where there's changes happening in the nuances of different languages as kind of a first check for myself before I start to finalize any type of information. And again, I'm not just talking about tools that are specifically built to translate digital content. I'm also talking about the tools that we just use in our everyday workflows. So if you take Vyond, for example, Vyond, the video authoring tool, that tool can generate content in 70 different languages today. And then Exonify, the tool that I work with, we can translate information and the entire platform into 63 different languages, including different dialects of similar languages. And then you take PowerPoint, which I use not just to present information, but also to live subtitle my presentations by myself. I can do that in 60 different languages. And then you take that to kind of the online version of presentation and meetings. Zoom supports more than 30 languages today as well. So what I think will happen or needs to happen when it comes to AI and L&D is that AI-enabled technology can help L&D become an equity machine when it comes to making sure that people get the support they need to do great work. And this includes removing familiar barriers, and one of those is language, so that people can focus on learning and using the information, not just try to overcome the hurdle of understanding the information. But before you go looking for, a specialized app or service, you should really talk to your current tech partners and find out how are they advancing their language capabilities, because every authoring platform and every delivery system in L&D is capable now of using these tools and this underlying AI capability, underlying large language models to make similar advances. But it really requires learning and development professionals, that's you and me, to decide that this is a priority and push for this advancement when it comes to automated language translation. Thanks again for your question. Let's head to our next conversation. Oh, this is a good one. Can AI generate SCORM content? Let's talk about SCORM, shall we? So first of all, AI is not generating SCORM content. We don't need that. But the authoring tools that leverage AI can often generate or output in SCORM. So let's take an example. If you're not familiar with Mindsmith. So Mindsmith is an AI-powered course development tool that allows you to take source material and generate slide-based course content. And then you can share your course from the platform in a variety of different ways. And that includes exporting your course to SCORM 1.2 or SCORM 2004 formats. So SCORM is going to be a really interesting part of the AI in L&D story. Right now, L&D teams all over the world are sitting on mountains of content, and it's not just any content. This is legally approved, SME reviewed, proprietary information. But here's the catch. AI, right now, can't really read SCORM. And we're going to solve this problem, but it just shows how easy it could be for L&D to become disconnected from the larger AI narrative if we don't explore new ways that we can integrate with our organizational ecosystems. And that's especially true when it comes to the fact that we may not own, control, admin, purchase, select the different tools people are going to use to support learning and performance across the ecosystem. So we really need to take a hard look at our content practices and our data practices and how we're advancing those practices to contribute to the broader kind of tech-enabled work story. So if your company right now is, for example, launching a digital assistant to help employees solve problems on the job, you need to be thinking about how L&D is going to contribute to this performance support story via our content as well as our expertise. Because the reality is L&D never owned learning at work. And now AI is going to expand the learning ecosystem well beyond the four walls of L&D. And we need to prepare to enable this expansion of the ecosystem rather than trying to kind of wrap our arms around what we own and fight against that change. So that's my SCORM story in AI in learning and development. Moving on. So if you aren't currently deliberately using AI in instructional design, I enjoy that specific call out, deliberately using, because AI-enabled technology underlies just so many everyday experiences today, both at home and at work. If you say, I'm not using AI, you probably are. You just aren't using a certain category of tool in a certain part of your work. But anyway, where do you recommend that we start if we're not purposefully doing it today? And I would say a good starting place is looking for friction in the work today. So what parts of your processes take up a lot of time and a lot of resources? And then explore how AI and new technologies that leverage AI capabilities might help you complete these tasks differently, or maybe even just avoid them altogether because you can do the job or solve the problem in a different way. And as I already mentioned, the key for evolving L&D through AI is going to be understanding how work is changing and then how we must therefore evolve what we do in support of that work. But in the meantime, there are going to be short-term gains and kind of immediate familiar obstacles that we can overcome by introducing more AI-enabled capability. So I use AI across my content generation workflows. That includes everything from idea generation, image creation, video editing, voiceover generation, and translation, as we've already talked about. And I play with a lot of different AI-enabled tech, but my focus is always on the problem. What am I trying to accomplish? Who am I trying to help? And then I want to find new ways that I can solve these problems using new tools, whether they involve AI or they don't. And I know that L&D pros in general don't have lots of extra time for experimentation because you have jobs to do and stakeholders that you need to satisfy. But I really think every L&D team needs to consider carving out a little bit of time for learning and experimentation when it comes to getting past the noise and the hype and really taking a hard look at what we do and how we can do it differently as we prepare for the evolution of work around us. So, one example, something my team does, is consider carving out 1 hour every month for an AI lunch and learn where you can have members of the team kind of in an informal way. No need to build a big formal presentation, but have a conversation and maybe bring some examples of how different people are exploring or using new tools, or maybe something that they discovered when they went to a webinar or went to a conference, so that it can elevate everyone's understanding and really start to trigger some of that ideation and those conversations about, well, this is a challenge that we're commonly seeing. What if we applied this type of technology to solve that problem and gain some immediate value while we're still thinking about the broader AI and L&D story? And it's unfortunate that the worst joke in L&D is always about how little time that we dedicate to our own learning and development because we're acting in service of others. And I think this AI story is a great example of a situation where we really need to make the time to keep ourselves informed and educated as technology evolves around us. Thanks again for the question. Moving on. Next question. We are about halfway there right now. What are some fundamental things to consider when we are talking about incorporating AI in our learning ecosystem? So remember when I said that the questions early in the session were a little more tech and tool based. And as the conversation goes on, we get more strategic and kind of future focused, because that was the nature of the conversation, was not just how we use the tech, but how do we prepare for the evolution of work? So I love this question. So a couple key points. And again, I'll point back to the chapter that I wrote as an addendum to my book called AI Meets the Modern Learning Ecosystem, available on my website, jdwroteabook.com. And you can find it, use the code mentioned earlier in our video today to download that chapter, because I go into more depth about how we need to start thinking about the introduction of AI in the learning ecosystem. But a couple key points that I'll make now. One, don't add risk. Follow the rules that your organization has established when it comes to AI and technology. If you don't have rules, because maybe you're one of the many organizations where IT is kind of playing catch up, trying to figure out what stance are we going to take, what's okay, what's not okay. We, of course, need to make sure that we're maintaining privacy, we're maintaining information security, all these different factors that your IT organization is charged with in protecting the organization. We don't want to bypass those rules, but if you don't have rules, maybe that are specific to follow, please follow the rules of common sense. Example, don't put proprietary information into a platform that you don't understand, especially if it's free. So just don't add more risk or question marks around an already challenging situation. Second point is don't do this alone. So AI at work is not an L&D story. It's an organizational story. So get with your partners. So that's operations, that's IT, that's HR, that's legal, and find out how they're evolving their practices and their strategies through AI, and then determine, well, how can L&D best contribute to an AI-enabled learning and performance ecosystem and not kind of carve off our own portion of the story? I keep saying the last thing we want is to have employees that have 5 different digital assistants, because they've got the HR one, they've got the L&D one, they've got the operations one, they've got the safety one. We do not want that to happen. We want this to be a coordinated, collaborative experience of advancing the workplace through technology. And to do that, we need to be open to rethinking the role that we perform in the workplace, especially where information is going to move in very different ways than it has in the past. Number 3, avoid the black box problem where you can't meaningfully explain how technology works. This is especially important when using AI to augment your learning delivery capability through capabilities like personalization, adaptive learning, and tools like digital assistants, because employees deserve the opportunity to know how technology is impacting their job and their performance and their opportunities associated to their work. And this includes their learning and development opportunities. So make sure your AI story is as inclusive, as transparent, and as equitable as possible from the start. And then last one for this question is, remember that learning doesn't change in the presence of AI. how we support people's learning and performance does change because people are still people. They still need the same kinds of help to do their jobs effectively. But we need to understand what those jobs are and what the knowledge and skill and support requirements are going to be so that people can be effective in those jobs so that we can then reshape our practices accordingly. So we're going to talk a lot about tech when it comes to AI, but we have to remember that learning is still a human experience. Thanks again for the question. Moving on. What is the best approach for a dissertation on AI in the realm of adult learners to self-actualize? Well, I'm glad that you asked this question because I have many thoughts on this particular subject. And creating a dissertation on AI in the realm of adult learners to self-actualize involves what I would call a structured approach. So you want to begin by defining the research scope and objectives, focusing on aspects such as AI-driven personalized learning or AI in career development. Then you want to conduct a thorough literature review to explore the history of AI in education, current studies, and identify research gaps incorporating theories like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and educational technology frameworks. Then you're going to want to choose a suitable research methodology, whether qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods, and decide on data collection methods like surveys, interviews, or maybe case studies. Then you're going to identify and describe AI tools and platforms, conducting case studies on their implementations, and then use appropriate data analysis techniques such as statistical or thematical analysis and present your findings clearly before you then discuss the implications of your findings in the context of adult learning and self-actualization, addressing any challenges and limitations before summarizing your key findings, provide recommendations for educators and policymakers, of course, and compile a comprehensive list of references. You want to stay updated on the latest developments, seek feedback from advisors and peers, and ensure your research adheres to ethical guidelines. And by following this structured approach, you can develop a comprehensive and impactful dissertation on AI in the realm of adult learners to self-actualize. Yeah, I used AI to write that entire answer because I don't have a great answer to that question because I just really don't think about that particular topic, but I'd be happy to chat about it. So if you are the person who asked that question or you're curious about that particular topic around an AI-based dissertation, feel free to ping me and we could have a little bit more of a detailed conversation. Thanks, AI, for the help with that one. Moving forward, the most popular question I get asked, the question that is asked in every presentation that has ever taken place on the planet Earth is, will you be sharing this presentation with us? Yes. You can get the slides at LearnGeek.ai right now. Moving forward, what is the timeline for AI completely replacing instructional design work? Complete replacement, I still believe the answer is never. Will AI cause job losses within L&D? Yes. And we're already seeing technology take on more tasks commonly associated with ID and content development work. So quick examples, machines can now write better assessment questions than your average person can today because most assessment questions are not great. You know, I know, you've done it. I use AI to handle almost all of my voiceover audio needs. So that's a solved problem when it comes to technology. I always say if you need a voice, AI can do it now. If you need a performance, that's where you still need a person. I use AI to write short posts or maybe generate simple images, as we've already talked about, but it can't do everything that I can do, no matter how hard I'm actually trying to replace myself through technology. So L&D isn't just going to get smaller through AI. I don't think that's how this transformation happens. So it's not just about replacement or loss. I think it's going to cause L&D to restructure to fit what we do, our expertise and our capability within the needs of a shifting workplace ecosystem. So this may mean increasing efficiency by doing more with less, which is a familiar story, especially right now. But it may also mean taking on new roles and new types of work. So it's not about doing what we do today, but maybe doing it with less people and more technologies. That's only part of the story. We might take on additional capabilities like internal communication, knowledge management, and other performance and skill building related ideas from across the enterprise may consolidate into kind of a new center of excellence, while at the same time having that center of excellence activate new capabilities across the organization. And the tech is just going to get better along the way. But more importantly, it's going to get more specialized. And that's, I think, the important part of the story. Because the future of AI is not these general multi-purpose tools where AI is over there and then the other tools I use are over here. It's about specialized features that are embedded within the specialized tools we use every day to solve specific problems. But it's not just that L&D is going to have access to these tools in order to improve efficiency and output from our side. It's that the same stakeholder who today builds those, really long, ugly slide decks that they use as source material, 300 slides, 10-point font, that person, they're going to have access to the same course builders that we have access to. And those tools will have L&D expertise wrapped inside of them. And they're going to use them. So rather than allow ourselves to get pushed aside by this federation of specialized technology, I think it's up to L&D to enable that ecosystem by taking advantage of the availability of this technology to enable our champions and subject matter experts and really start to help to draw those lines of where do you use these tools? When do you pull on specific expertise? How do we balance the ecosystem so that we're playing the right role as opposed to fighting this evolution of what it means to learn and develop at work? That's my story. Thanks so much. Heading to our next question. Almost done, everybody. Almost done. Our next question is, where do you start as an individual contributor to use AI in an L&D role? What resources do you recommend to provide basic fundamental insight into AI? What is it? How do you use it to enable work, i.e. AI for Dummies? I'm pretty sure someone's writing that book right now if it's not already made available. I know there are a lot of people right now building content, building educational resources, writing books around this topic, given how fast it's moving. And it's a moving target. And it's hard to say this is how it works because how it works and how we're applying this technology is quickly evolving. So first, if you head over to my AI resource page at LearnGeek.ai, you're going to find a constantly evolving list of resources. That includes an online magazine that I curate with the latest information that I find out and about. It includes recommended podcasts to listen to, videos that I curate, but also there you'll find a subject matter expert list. And that's where I really recommend you start because I'm a fan of following people rather than following topics. And I would start with someone like Dr. Philippa Hardman, who's applying their AI expertise to really help L&D pros understand how this technology is impacting our brand of work. The entire industry and the entire world is playing catch up when it comes to AI. And what we need to avoid is allowing the FOMO to overwhelm us. But at the same time, we don't just want to wait for things to get settled and for someone to hand us the answer, because that's how you get left behind in the conversation. So I think it's critical for anyone who's just getting started, trying to figure out what's real, what's hype. Find people who really get this stuff, who are spending a lot of their time and putting a lot of effort into distilling the noise down to a meaningful signal for people who do learning and development work, and follow them for meaningful insights and connections to other resources. And like I said, just don't get distracted by the marketing and the hype that's out there, because it's unlikely to slow down or calm down anytime soon. AI. All right, let's check out our next question. A couple more left. Is there a software that allows you to upload company-created antiquated, I love the antiquated in this question, PowerPoints and PDF, and have it create video content complete with AI voiceover, or even better, an interactive training? This is a yes and kind of an answer. Because first of all, I don't know exactly what you mean by interactive training. People define that in different ways. There's a growing list of authoring tools that will generate instructional materials from source content, and that includes PowerPoint presentations and PDF files. I already mentioned one example earlier in this video, that's Vyond. So their Vyond Go platform allows you to take uploaded information and generate a video in a matter of seconds. And you can actually see an example of that if you want to. If you go to LearnGeek.ai, my resource website, there's a video embedded there from my LearnGeek YouTube channel where I took a section of my book, The Modern Learning Ecosystem, about reinforcement, took the text, uploaded it to Vyond Go, clicked a couple of options, and in seconds, you had an animated overview video of that section of my book. I didn't alter anything, update anything. I just activated the AI, uploaded the output, and you can see the process of me putting that video together over on my website. And then I also mentioned another example earlier, which was Mindsmith, which is an AI-powered course generator. Does a very similar thing, but the output in that case is a course with interactive components as opposed to a video-based output. So the idea of building specialized content from source material, like Vion does, like Mindsmith does, it's a pretty standard use case, I would say, right now for generative AI. And I'm sure between the time I'm saying this and the time you're watching this video, there's going to be more options out there for you to play with and to use, depending on the type of content that you're trying to create based on the needs of your audience and the problems that you're trying to solve. So again, that's where I would focus, not on the tech first. What's the right content to solve the right problem for the right audience? And what tools can help me connect people with the information they need to solve those problems? Thanks again for the question. Moving on, we've got 2 questions left. 2 questions left, everybody. What would you consider to be the best way to use AI for the purposes of equity and inclusion? So again, it's hard for me to say the best way. I'm going to give you my perspective or thoughts based on the type of work that I do. I would always recommend starting by focusing on the person and understanding what they need to do every day to do their best work and how we can help facilitate that. So what knowledge and skill do they need to develop? What kind of support do they need on the job? And especially, what kinds of obstacles do they face when trying to do their best work every day? And then rather than do things the way we've always done them and allow people to sometimes slip through the cracks, how can we consider new ways to help people overcome these obstacles through technology so that everyone is included in the story? And you may know this, but I do a lot of work primarily with frontline employees. They're the biggest contingent of the workforce. 70 to 80% of the world works on the front line. They're also the most undersupported workforce. And it's not because we don't want to help the frontline workforce. It's just a really hard math problem when you have tens to hundreds of thousands of people to support and limited L&D resources to help an audience that could be across locations, countries, geographies, languages, cultures. There's a lot of variables in that particular math problem. So we've already talked about some examples of how AI can help L&D become an equity machine. We talked about language and translation as an example. But let's consider a different barrier when it comes to people's ability to understand information so they can then focus on learning and developing themselves. That barrier could be reading. You may have employees within your organization who are just not great readers, even if the information is presented in their preferred language. Now, we can use AI right now to adjust their digital experiences so we can better meet them where they are and focus on their individual needs. So this could involve, for example, adjusting complicated language to make it easier for someone to understand. Or we could take it to another place and we could use AI to voice content so a person doesn't have to read information at all if that's their preference. So I find that AI is already helping us find new and creative solutions to familiar problems. But it starts with taking the time to understand the people that we're helping and really hear their challenges and what they're facing every day as they're just trying to do their jobs. And it comes down to really caring about helping people overcome those challenges and then using the best of what we've got in our evolving tool set to find creative ways to eliminate those obstacles so people can focus on what they're there to do, which is doing great work. Thanks again for your question. As we head to the final question from my ATD 24 AI and L&D session, and that is, what do you think about the rise of AI avatar recruiters? I don't know if I have an opinion on this particular question because I'm not really up to speed on this trend in terms of how AI is being used when it comes to avatars and recruiters. I do a decent amount of work with AI-generated avatars. I mentioned earlier, you might have seen LearnGeek AI, my digital clone. So I do a decent amount of avatar generation as part of my AI toolkit. But in this case, I don't know exactly what we're talking about. So are we talking about the use of AI to engage with job candidates, maybe providing answers to common questions, engaging in that type of conversation that might be hard to scale with your existing recruitment team? So if it's that kind of stuff, as long as the person knows they're talking to a machine and they can get access to a real person if they need it, I'm totally cool. with this. The idea of scaling information in a way that's more personalized based on needs, awesome. It's already hard enough to find a right fit role. So if we can use AI to make the candidate and the hiring manager recruitment experience more effective, more pleasant for everybody, all for it. However, if we're talking about more gimmicky stuff, or if we're talking about using AI for the purposes of explicitly cost cutting so that we can reduce recruiter headcount and make it harder for a candidate to find a person, and now they're just stuck talking to a machine, maybe across multiple phases of the recruitment process, that I'm not cool with. I think in that case, we need to go back to the drawing board and again, focus on how we're creating a human experience through technology, not replacing the human experience with technology in ways that don't benefit the candidate or the hiring manager in this particular case. Thanks for the question. Hope that was an answer to that question. I haven't thought about that one because again, so many different use cases, potential problems we can solve through technology. It's hard for anyone, even people who focus on this every day, to keep up with everything that's being discussed. And that is every question that I was asked during my ATD conference at this year's event. So thanks to everyone who joined my session, stopped by at the Exonify Expo booth, or maybe chatted with me in the hall. I hope this conversation helps you better prepare for the oncoming transformation of L&D through AI-enabled technology. And if you want to keep the conversation going after this, be sure, first of all, subscribe to LearnGeek on YouTube, and then follow me on LinkedIn, where we're having lots of conversation about AI and the transformation of L&D over the next several months, heading into the next few years. But as always, thank you so much for everything that you do. Let me know how I can be helpful in any way. I'll see you next time. Be well, everybody. Bye now.